Sony have been kicking butt for years now with their PlayStation systems, and once 1999 rolled around, the original console's successor was announced. We know just how successful the PlayStation 2 was, and I think Sony knew it would be the case back then too. They saw the system as being something that could replace a desktop PC, and Bill Gates, at the time head honcho of Microsoft, took it personally. Windows was a dominating force in gaming across the 90s, staying far ahead of the console competition, but the PlayStation 2 threatened their market, so Microsoft took to a market they originally didn't feel they needed to: the home console. Members of the DirectX team set to work creating a console which could rival the PlayStation 2, but could also easily be developed for since it was basically just a PC. The DirectX box was trimmed down to just Xbox, and Microsoft's first home console launched in 2001. Halo Combat Evolved was the big launch title for the system, but because they were going up against Sony's behemoth platform, they wanted to beat them at their own game. The flagship titles for the PS1 were arguably Gran Turismo and Gran Turismo 2, so Microsoft's sights were set. This is the history of Forza. We are targeting Gran Turismo with this game on Xbox, and I think we've been very focused on that. We have a lot of respect for Gran Turismo, which helps drive that desire to beat them. It was not a huge secret that Forza Motorsport, announced at E3 2004, existed to simply be Gran Turismo but for the Xbox. But similar to Polyphony Digital's efforts throughout the 90s, Microsoft weren't going to half-ass this game. Turn 10 Studios was founded in 2001 within Microsoft Game Studios itself, and after 2.5 years of development, 3 delays, and a hell of a lot of marketing, the original Forza Motorsport dropped for the Xbox in May 2005. Released to universal acclaim, the title was praised for its incredible realism, phenomenal graphics, vast roster of cars and tracks, and deep customization, as players could create their own detailed liveries in-game, something Gran Turismo didn't do for another 12 years. Even by today's standards, the original Forza Motorsport is an impressive looking title, utilising the power of the original Xbox. The inclusion of both System Link and online play made the original FM a fantastic platform for racing, selling hundreds of thousands of copies. Compared to Gran Turismo's offering at the same time, Gran Turismo 4, released a matter of months before on the PlayStation 2, Forza Motorsport is ranked 3 points higher than GT4 on Metacritic. It's safe to say that Xbox's Gran Turismo rival had a fantastic start, though the series didn't remain on the original Xbox for all that long, as less than a year later, its successor came onto the scene. The Xbox 360 was a truly stunning bit of kit. Featuring much more powerful hardware, a radical design choice to make it stand out, the 360 was off to a good start. And the hopeful graphical powerhouse that would be Forza Motorsport's sequel wasn't all that far behind. 2007 saw the release of Forza Motorsport 2 with more cars, more circuits, more customization, and more graphics than ever before. Xbox Live became even better along the release of the 360, so online racing had become immensely popular, with players even auctioning their handcrafted vehicle liveries off to other racers. Forza 2 was phenomenally successful, selling over 2 million copies in its lifetime. Metacritic ranked this 2 points lower than its predecessor, but you still can't knock a 90. Of course, this was early days for developers with the system, so the true capabilities of the Xbox 360 were yet to be harnessed. But come 2009, Turn 10 really put their foot on the gas. Forza Motorsport 3 released in October 2009 and first used the branding we're used to today. Donning the backside of an Audi R8 on its box art, the stakes were raised once again in terms of drivable cars, tracks to hurtle around, customization options, and new ways to play the game. Cockpit cam, photo mode, improvements to AI behaviour and the physics model, the introduction of the rewind feature we all know and love, and the 360's hardware was better used, with Forza Motorsport 3 not only running at a solid 60 frames per second, something even modern titles on current hardware can't seem to do, but also looking incredible. Once again, the series was met with critical acclaim. Forza Motorsport 3 was the best of the bunch, matching the 92 Metacritic score the original landed, yet having a lower user score compared to Forza 2. 2010 saw Gran Turismo 5 release, which ended up at 84 on Metacritic, and while not still a bad score by any means, it looked to be that when up against the series Forza started life to compete against, they were now coming out on top. But how long could they stay above their sister from another Mr. Series? The Xbox 360 was an incredible success, with sales leaps and bounds ahead of the PlayStation 3 for the majority of its lifespan, yet behind the Wii, nothing was going to top Wii Sports. It's no surprise that Forza would get yet another sequel on the platform. Project Natal, later known as the Kinect, had released in 2010, and every 360 title under the sun released around that time had support for it in some way, shape or form, Forza Motorsport 4 being no different. Continuing the upward trajectory of the franchise on Xbox 360, 4 landed on store shelves and Xbox dashboards in October 2011. Introducing the phenomenal Auto Vista mode, not only did you get more detail than ever before, showing off just how good the game looked, you were given a ton of information about the cars you were driving, delivered by one Jeremy Clarkson, former host of BBC's Top Gear. The show had a ton of integration in Forza 4, including the test track, 2 of the reasonably priced cars used on the show, the Kia CE''D and Suzuki Liana, as well as car football. Rocket League, eat your heart out. Going back to that old chestnut Kinect, Forza 4 had integration with Xbox sparkly new peripheral, including head tracking for looking around your car's cockpit, which is actually pretty cool. Or you could look like a pillock by steering an invisible steering wheel in front of you to actually play the game. If you avoided the input method that makes you look a moron, Forza Motorsport 4 released to incredible acclaim once again. Compared to its previous installment, it dropped a single point on Metacritic down to a still very respectable 91, while the user rating was bumped up by 0.2 to 8.3. The title was phenomenally polished, great to play, but was admittedly more of the same. So, while it didn't actually really need to, Forza decided that its next installment would really shake things up. Formed back in 2010, British game studio Playground Games were brought on as primary developer for the sister series to Forza Motorsport, with Turn 10 lending a hand where needed. Where Motorsport lent into the hardcore realism and track circuits, this new title, Forza Horizon, would take the physics, handling and stunning polish of its sibling, but frame it within an open world and a more casual setting. Colorado took center stage for this new venture, with Playground delivering their own interpretation of the state, featuring snowy mountains, plains and a fictionalized take on Red Rocks Park. The ability to roam freely around beautiful landscapes in your choice of 200 cars was fun in and of itself, but taking part in street races, competing against your rivals and becoming as popular as humanly possible made the title even more of a time sink. You were still granted the pleasure of creating custom liveries and tuning and upgrading your cars much like the Forza we'd already known, but we were in a whole new ballpark here. Horizon was well received as a new avenue for Forza to explore. What came before was still present in the base DNA of this game, but the far more accessible nature of being open world and, dare I say it, more arcadey feeling, though it's not really an arcade racer, transcended Forza Horizon into its own genre. 85 on Metacritic puts it in a very good place for the first of a new breed of Forza games, and with the user score of 8.5 mirroring the critics, it's safe to say that Horizon was a success. Motorsport was refining itself with every installment, Horizon kicked off a new sub-series and introduced many new players to the franchise, and Xbox players could not wait to see what was coming next. It had been 8 years since the launch of the Xbox 360. While red rings of death plagued the original systems, and the sheer idea of that green ring changing colour sent shivers down the spines of playground kids all over the world. Even with a sleek refresh in 2010, players were still anticipating the next big thing from Xbox. In May 2013, Xbox hosted a press conference to reveal their next flagship system, the Xbox One. While the name was intended to represent the console being an all-in one entertainment center, it did confuse consumers who, up to this point, referred to the original Xbox as the Xbox One. But that wasn't the first stumble. The console was rumoured to be an always-on system, meaning a persistent internet connection was required to play, and fears of intrusive DRM pushed players to potentially switch sides and join the PlayStation 4 gang once the 8th generation kicked off. The infamous Don Matrick didn't help concerned players with his blunt, unapologetic demeanour when announcing and further detailing the console at the press conference and at E3 later that year. His comment regarding users who were concerned about always online systems just buying the soon-to-be outdated Xbox 360 instead didn't help matters either, and not long after that he left Microsoft for Zynga. Bye-bye. The launch lineup for the Xbox One was unveiled, and alongside Call of Duty Ghosts, Need for Speed Rivals, the much showcased Rise Son of Rome, and arguably the most anticipated of this launch lineup, Peggle 2, was Forza Motorsport 5. As a series known for its stunning visuals, going onto a platform being touted as one of the most graphically capable meant expectations were astonishingly high. On the graphical side, Forza 5 definitely delivered. But similar to how Forza 2 hadn't nailed the capability of the 360 just yet but still delivered a stunning experience, it was the same on the Xbox One with 5. Returning features included the Auto Vista, renamed to Forza Vista, in which players could now poke around every car in the game, as well as BBC's Top Gear content and voiceovers, while new features included the introduction of open-wheel race cars from both Formula 1 and IndyCar, as well as laser-scanned tracks for incredible detail and realism. There was a lot going for 5 on paper, though upon release, the title crawled over the finish line. The number of cars available in-game almost halved compared to 4, the number of tracks substantially dropped too. The driver task system had now been moved into the cloud, with it reading how you play and transferring that AI into other players' games. Therefore, the career mode featured digital, inverted commas, representations of your friends list as your rivals, and it was a rocky behaviour system at best. They were aggressive, stupid, and not really that fun to play with. Finally, finally, this is the 8th generation of consoles. Little did we know back in 2013 there was going to be a new norm for games of this era, paying more beyond the initial asking price. Now admittedly, while it wasn't as egregious as other titles of this era, Forza 5 added in-game purchases to make the game easier for those who simply couldn't be bothered to play it through. The excuse was it was to cater to people who wanted the entire thing unlocked from the word go, to use it as a simulation program or a giant playground. Players saw straight through this usual spiel from Turn 10 and Microsoft, and eventually they changed up the system, and Playground Games, hard at work on their next title, took notice. Forza Motorsport 5 finished up with a 79 on Metacritic, and while not a dreadful score in the grand scheme of things, it was a slip the franchise didn't need going into a new console generation. The users, however, set the bar even lower. Sitting at 6.0, this was the lowest the series had dropped on both the critic and user side. The Xbox One's launch was turbulent, and Forza 5 was shaken almost to bits. Gran Turismo 6, while continuing on a critical decline, still scored higher than Forza 5, so when Horizon 2 was next up to bat, it had to hit a home run. Released in 2014 for both the Xbox One and Xbox 360, this was Forza's last foray into the 7th generation, and it went out with a bang. Continuing the accessible yet accurate nature of the first title, Horizon 2 took you to the south of France and into northern Italy. Introducing a day-night cycle and dynamic weather for the first time in the franchise, not only had Playground Games refined their craft, but Sumo Digital did a cracking job on getting the vast majority of it to work on the Xbox 360, which obviously had limitations and differences compared to the flagship version. It was, in the grand scheme of things, more of the same, but that's not a bad thing in the slightest. Metacritic puts Horizon 2 at 86, 1 point higher than its predecessor, whereas the user score dropped 0.2 points down to 8.3. It's not as bad as how Forza 5 fared, so that's a win. It's back to Turn 10 as they attempt to claw back the acclaim they'd had in spades before. Q 2015. This was not going to be easy. While Forza 5 was still a good game when all was said and done, it didn't meet the standards set by all that came before, including the first Horizon title. The Xbox One architecture was being more and more understood as the weeks and months since 2013 went on, and players wanting their more serious fix of Forza were hoping that this would be represented in the anticipated Motorsport 6. Announced in January 2015 for release in September that year, Turn 10 entered a partnership with Ford to make their new 2017 Ford GT the cover car and include several of their newest cars in the game. Along with the usual gameplay modes, Forza Vista, livery editor and Top Gear content, minus the host the franchise is known for, 6 added back in a ton of tracks, had far more vehicles than 5, brought in both night and wet racing, rebuilt the career mode, and took a leaf from Horizon's book by adding in showcase events. Visually, the game remained top tier. Turn 10 were getting their head around the Xbox One, making more use of its power, and it showed. After the arguable misfire that was 5, 6 put the franchise back on track. Critics fell back in love with the Motorsport series after their stumble 2 years prior, so much so the Metacritic score shot back up to 87. It might not be level with the likes of Forza 3 and 4, but it's a damn sight better than 5. Fans agreed, with their score bumping back up to 7.7. Further expansions for this title featured the Fast and the Furious, Porsche and NASCAR, so players had a lot to sink their teeth into. Of course, with the success of the sister series, Horizon was coming back too. 2016 saw Horizon 3 head to Australia, once again fictionalized by Playground Games. The vast majority of the gameplay we were used to in previous installments was present. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it and all, but it did change things up a bit. You're not participating in the Horizon Festival, you run the Horizon Festival, expanding its reach across Australia whilst competing in races, doing stunts, and becoming hella popular. Drivatars were further integrated into the Horizon series, multiplayer got more toys to play with, and the world was about double the size of Horizon 2. Once again, the title was met with critical acclaim, as said, if it ain't broke, scoring 91 on Metacritic, matching Forza Motorsport's 4 score. However, the user score continued to dip for the Horizon games, going from 8.5 to 8.3 and now to 8.0. Respectable scores of course, but while critics were happy with the titles, perhaps players needed something new to shake up the Horizon formula. But in seemingly standard practice at this point, Motorsport's turn was next. The infuriating naming conventions Microsoft used throughout the 8th generation of consoles remained ever present when the Xbox One X was announced. I still think the Xbox One Elite would have been better, harking back to those glorious 360 days. This new system was capable of inverted commas 4K, and first-party titles got first dibs on this new hardware, Turn 10 being one such developer. Tasked with once again showcasing the horsepower of this new system, similar to their efforts back in 2013 with the OG Xbox One, how better to do it than with Xbox's best-looking series? Forza Motorsport 7 was announced at E3 2017, set to release in October. Still managing to hit 60 frames per second, Forza 7 once again looked phenomenal. The first tick box for a Forza title, basically. Graphics first, the rest later. Box ticked. Backed up by 700 cars, a plethora of locales and circuits, both real and fictional, and introducing the dynamic weather system from the Horizon games, 7 felt to be the quintessential Forza title on the Xbox One, similar to how 4 capitalized on the 360's full potential. The in-game economy was still a little bit botched, which has been an issue that's plagued the motorsport titles for a while now, and loot boxes were still running rampant in every video game as well as Forza 7. But otherwise, it was more of the same. For Horizon, that works wonders since you're exploring an open world in a new locale, but for Motorsport, it's not as strong of a fallback to use. While it did add new improvements such as an improved wheel-less cockpit cam, the ability to modify and tune cars in the loading screen, and in-car clocks telling the correct time, critics ended up docking this installment a point, dropping it to 86 on Metacritic, but the fans weren't as convinced. The user score plummeted to 6.3, which is only marginally higher than the kerfuffle that was Motorsport 5. Graphics are one thing, but the same old thing again is another. Ironic that one facet of the franchise can pull that off, but not the other. That is currently where Motorsport sits. A strong title in and of itself, but compared to what came before, it didn't do much more than graphics. Though not exactly a title you'd avoid, they're in a strange place. Gran Turismo Sport released that same year, but ended up at only 75 on Metacritic, which is criminal in this humble presenter's opinion. Come 2020, a reboot of the series, titled simply Forza Motorsport, was revealed to be coming to the also infuriatingly named Xbox Series X and Series S. We got a flashy trailer, but that's about all we know on it so far. No release date, no specifics, nothing yet. Though it is exciting to see what will change in a full reboot. However, we're not quite done with our history of just yet. It was time for Playground Games to do their thing with their home turf, as Forza Horizon 4 took to the streets of northern England and into Scotland. The vast majority of what makes Horizon remains in this installment, but alongside their famed dynamic weather, Playground added 4 discrete seasons, changing up not only the aesthetics of your surroundings, but also changing up surface temperatures, grip, and even making parts of the map inaccessible due to a lake in the summer, accessible since it's frozen over in the winter. After an exhilarating opening introducing you to all 4 seasons, once you're let loose in Forza Horizon 4, your playable season will align with everyone else's, which changes week to week. The Horizon formula was further refined, and as to be expected, the game is absolutely stunning. To this day, the title continues to thrive, with Fortune Island and LEGO Speed Champions DLCs, a quick jump on the Battle Royale train with the Eliminator mode, and its inclusion on Xbox Game Pass introducing the series to thousands of new players. Horizon 4 was the gift that just kept on giving. Critics lauded not only the return to the Horizon series once again, but the introduction of the seasons, making every week in the game feel incredibly fresh. Horizon 4 sits atop the collective Metacritic scores for the franchise at 92, along with the original Forza Motorsport and Motorsport 3. The user score also improved from its predecessor, jumping from 8.0 to 8.2, and me personally, I adore Horizon 4. It is well worth picking up Game Pass to give this a try. With the Motorsport reboot without an ETA and Playground Games taking on the almost gargantuan task of rebooting the much-loved Fable series, what's next? Horizon 5 makes the most sense, rumoured to be set in either Mexico or Japan. We'll have to find out more come E3 this year. We hope. So, this graph that's been flashing up all throughout this video, why have I put so much focus on scores? Well, Forza set out, as we said, to be the Gran Turismo for the Xbox. While not in direct competition with the series, apart from hoping to drag undecided console buyers to their side of the field, Microsoft and Turn 10 did their best to match and actually beat the bar set by Gran Turismo 1, 2, 3 and 4. With Gran Turismo's critical reception slowly dropping and Motorsport not exactly staying consistent, Horizon has been the clear winner here, with an upward trajectory since its first release back in 2012. Motorsport's reboot will hopefully score in the high 80s or early 90s, Horizon 5 will hopefully keep its winning streak up and remain in the low 90s, and from what we've seen of Gran Turismo 7 for the PS5, it's looking incredible. There's something great about having two series on separate platforms go neck and neck, and arguably both come out as winners. Irrelevant of whether you're on Team Green or Team Blue, you've got some great racing simulators ahead of you. Personally, Horizon takes the cake. The mix of open world freedom with a fantastic mechanical base in terms of handling and simulation makes for a great blend of genres, and as said, Horizon 4 is well worth your time. It looks as if the Padawan has become the master, as Forza's trajectory seems stronger than that of Gran Turismo, though again, GT Sports Metacritic score is a bit lower than it should be, IMO. In the end, Turn 10 achieved what they set out to do, slay the beast that stood so proudly atop the PlayStation platform, the platform that supposedly threatened the PC as an integral part of the gaming world. Xbox struck back and gave us all experiences unrivaled by other racing titles, including the ones they set out to beat. Competition means better products for us. If Gran Turismo 7 breathes a lot of life into the PlayStation exclusive franchise next year, may Forza Motorsport 20-something be even better. And that is our look back at the Forza franchise. What do you think of these games, and what do you think of this video? Please let me know in the comments section below. If you want to see more stuff like this in the future, then please do subscribe to the Traxion channel and ring the bell if you want notifications for every time we post something new. Thank you all so much for watching, it means a huge amount, and if you enjoyed this then please check out our video of the history of Need for Speed. It's kind of the same thing as this, but we're talking about EA and very arcade racing. Go check that out. Once again, thanks for watching, keep it pinned, and I'll see you next time.